What it is, what it do, YouTube. It's your boy Vince Rashad, aka the sports commentator. I'm here to do a quick video. Well, I try to keep it not any longer than about 15 minutes about the second ever black QB to win the Super Bowl. And I want to add in other than some facts about Russell Wilson's um, personal black history. I just want to add in some commentary about the Super Bowl, the coverage of the Super Bowl, and the game itself. Number one, Russell Wilson and the entire Seattle Seahawks team played an outstandingly good game. I mean, special teams, coaching staff, weight room boys, offense, defense, wide receivers, running back. Everybody was hitting on all 16 cylinders Sunday during the Super Bowl. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than that. You couldn't have told me it was going to be that big of a blowout. But, I mean, with the coverage that has went on leading up to the Super Bowl, it's a damn shame that Russell Wilson, who didn't make that much noise, has been really just about shoved under the rug. I mean, there's been such an invisibilizing of this guy that it's almost like it's almost as if a football uniform just got out there and played quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And, you actually had a young 25-year-old African-American man who won that game, who led his team. And what you heard leading up to the Super Bowl, to the game itself, was that, well, he hasn't been playing well. Russell Wilson did the same thing in that game that he's done all year round. He played within the system that the Seattle Seahawks use. He played within that particular game plan to absolute perfection. And, the game nowadays is so rigged to be entertainment. Chicks dig the long ball. So people like offense. So, the game nowadays is strictly made for, QBs to pass for 500 yards every week. To show you just how fluffed up the game has become when it comes to the passing game, Peyton Manning set a record this year. 55 touchdown passes, the most points ever scored. And then in the Super Bowl, he completed a record for pass completions. And yet they still lost because the game comes down to the old basic fundamentals of the game. And, post-game, I just think there's been so much of a marginalization now, a marginalization of Russell Wilson, because a lot of people say, well, it's a sign of progress when society doesn't really note that somebody black accomplished something. Why do you have to receive a pat on the back? Or why do you need a cookie for everything you do good if you're a black man? And to some degree or another, I can understand that. But what I don't understand and what I don't like about it is how each and every day, whether it's the local news, Facebook, various websites, there's absolutely positively nothing but the plastering of what black men do so bad that is continually showed to us on just about a 24/7, 365 basis. And when we do something right or do something good, then trust me, if not anybody else, I'm going to blow it up to the extreme, And I'm about to get just a little bit extreme here, okay? This brother outplayed a guy who is without a doubt, Peyton Manning didn't play a good game in a Super Bowl, but he is without a doubt going to the Hall of Fame. And he got outplayed by a second-year African-American man. And this brother deserves a lot of credit for that. As I say, he plays perfectly within that system. I mean, that game was just downright overwhelming. And there are things that are said by sports commentators that are really just sideways ways in which they make digs at black players, specifically black quarterbacks. The thing that you always hear most commonly is that, well, he's athletic. That's that's like a sideways way of saying black, or better yet, somebody who's more physical, somebody who really doesn't get the mental or the psychological aspects of processing information fastly, leading a team, finding a receiver and gunning the ball to him, plain and simple. Um, Often you hear Ron Jaworski on ESPN, and he always reserves this for when he talks about black quarterbacks. He always refers to, he uses a phrase called "can't process the information that fast," meaning Negro can't really think that fast. And no matter how much black men defy this stereotype, society is more comfortable putting the stereotype out there. Like, for example, they're still playing on local sports radio stations. They've just about included it into, like before they go to a break and during commercial breaks, the Richard Sherman rant. Richard Sherman has spoken a dozen and a half times ever since that rant, and when he speaks in a normal, civil tone, using his Stanford vocabulary, it's completely ignored. It's completely ignored. The only thing you hear is that rant, that very amped up rant he made after the win against San Francisco. But anyway, I'm going to get into Russell Wilson. And also, Russell Wilson, the guy is just a good quarterback, and he's a very well put together human being. Go to Russell Wilson's Twitter account and give him a follow. It's at Danger Russ Wilson. I'll put his Twitter name in here. But I'm gonna go over some very interesting facts, because one thing that a handful of bigots have attempted to do, and this is something that annoys me. Barack Obama looks much more like his mother than his dad, and he's always called a nigger. He's a very light-skinned mulatto. He's always called a nigger. And Russell Wilson is a very brown-skinned. He's mostly black. He's about 1/4 to a third Native American. But if someone like him robs an old lady in Atlanta, Georgia, trust me, he's going to be black. But whenever he accomplishes something good, as I notice from these bigots, they keep bringing up the fact that, oh, there's a native. He's not black. He has a native grandmother. He's not black. When it comes time to attribute good or reward a black person for being good, this country digs as deep as it can to try to find something to unblacken them. But when it's time for condemnation, and when it's time for the world to sit around and throw feces and urine at Negroes, then you are black without a doubt. I wouldn't care if you was like Mariah Carey. If you so much as claim a slight bit of blackness, then trust me, you do something bad, you's a nigger. Okay? But I'm gonna go over some facts that I wrote quite a bit of this down. Russell Wilson's father's name was Harrison Wilson. Harrison Wilson he started at the University of Dartmouth, the first black fraternity. at the University of Dartmouth. His father, Harrison Wilson, was also a triple athlete, played basketball, football, and baseball. He didn't go into the NFL after college, Harrison Wilson, even though he could have, because he chose to go to the University of Virginia Law School. He chose to be a lawyer instead. But he came to his senses. He got his education, but he went ahead and tried out for the San Diego Chargers in 1980, and he played for the practice squad of the San Diego Chargers. Harrison Wilson Jr., or better yet, Harrison Benjamin Wilson III. That was Russell Wilson's grandfather. His grandfather played at K-State, and his grandfather, Harrison Wilson, played at Kentucky State. Also, a very interesting fact is that Harrison Benjamin Wilson III, Russell Wilson's grandfather, also coached at a HBCU. That's a historically black college and university. He coached at Jackson State in my home state, Mississippi, in the 1950s. And I want to kind of take a jab at the Moorish Americans who always say we're Native Americans. And I've mixed this up, and I've mentioned this in a lot of my previous videos, that there's Native Indian people all in Mississippi. Russell Wilson clearly looks a tad bit different from most black people. If black people are not African, then how did Russell Wilson get mixed? How did he get 1/4 to 1/3 Native? His grandfather likely married a native, one of the native Mississippian. Like I said, the vast majority of the cities in the state of Mississippi have Native American names. Natchez, Noxubee, Kokomo, Biloxi. I could just go on. Tupelo. All these are just Native American names. Buckatona, Mississippi. I could go on and on. But as I say, his grandfather played for K-State, and he also coached at Jackson State, an all-black college in Jackson, Mississippi. Also, Russell Wilson's great-granddaddy was also the side man of a Confederate general, or better yet, a Confederate colonel. It's an interesting note. After the Civil War was lost, he gained his freedom. But his grandfather, or better yet, great-grandfather, was pretty much the sidekick of a Southern Confederate general. Kind of like a servant, but we don't totally and completely know the roles that every black man who might have been the sidekick of a Confederate colonel played back then. But like I said, this brother deserves a lot of credit. There's also something very interesting pertaining to the number 2 and Russell Wilson. For example, he's the second black quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. He won that Super Bowl in the second month of the year, on the second day. He is a 2-sport athlete. He has 2 ethnic backgrounds. He is one of 2 brothers. He does have a younger sister, but he has an older brother. He's one of 2 brothers. I mean, it's just interesting. Russell Wilson and the number 2. Look that up. There's a handful of people talking about it. But, I give a shout out to Russell Wilson, the dangerous Russell Wilson. Good game. And there has just been, in my opinion, the way that they've discredited him is through this whining. For the last 2 days, I've heard nothing but Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning. Russell Wilson has been mentioned very little by many of the major sports reporting organizations in America. They have really just about shoved this guy under the rug. The conversation keeps on being, should Peyton Manning go into the Hall of Fame? Did this mess up Peyton Manning's legacy? Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning. I mean, they have a man crush on Peyton Manning. And they really shoved this brother under the rug, you know. But he's going to get his just due, and he's most definitely got to get his money. They got to do something about that contract. Russell Wilson is making like $500,000 a year. They got to scrape that contract up. He's got to play one more year only making $500,000. And, you know, that's ridiculous. They need to straighten that contract out ASAP. You know, he needs one of them 5-year, $50 million deals, you know. But anyways, it is what it is. Shout out to Russell Wilson. Give Russell a follow on Twitter. And I want to commend that brother for being a well put together brother. You know, I didn't talk about it that much, but he comes from a line of academics. I mean, if you just look up Harrison Wilson, his father and his grandfather, they were both not just good athletes. These brothers were hyper academic. I mean, they master's degrees and multiple colleges, you know, getting degrees from multiple colleges. So he doesn't just come from strictly an athletic background, kind of like a Michael Vick. You know, he comes from a background of academics too. Like I said, his father chose to basically go to the University of Virginia Law School. And then he waited a year before he went into the NFL, you know. But it is what it is. Shout out to Russell Wilson. This concludes my little history lesson on the second ever black man to win a Super Bowl. Dangerous Russell Wilson. Holla.